to the essence of God himself. The scripture says God is love, not lust, love. And what I said Sunday is what we're getting in our women is the leftovers. If you don't get her fresh, you get her stale. And the woman is such that she can only give her virtue once.
Yes, sir.
And she can only really love once. So the only way that her love can come back to where it was when she first loved is that God, who created her with that nature, has to come into the man. And when there's God in a man and that man touches you again in your life, you can love even more deeply than you ever knew it was possible to love, because only God can turn on the divine spark of love that's in a woman. Now look here, sisters. Hold on. Follow me now. It is true. When you first fall in love, sisters, y'all all right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you first fall in love, this is a strange lecture for a church or mosque. Don't worry about that. This is something preachers should be preaching.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you first fall in love, it is so pure.
Yes, sir.
I mean, can you remember?
Yes, sir.
How could you forget? When you first, please give us a couple of seats up front here. Would you? Could you mind, sisters? Thank you. Thank you. When you first fall in love, that love is pure. That love is so pure that it causes you to give everything of yourself to the object of your love. There is nothing of good or other than good that you wouldn't do for someone that you love like that. When you are disappointed by that love, that breaks you so completely that, like something that is a sore, you get a callus on it.
Yes, sir.
And you harden. Once you are hurt in love, it is very difficult for you to love ever like that again. So the man that you ultimately end up with never fully gets from you what you first gave freely. He has to work hard for years, and he may never get it. But since Allah is the renewer, and Allah says he can reproduce the creation
Yes, sir.
as it once was, it is only when we are touched by God himself, our originator and creator, that newness of life and newness of love can come back again. Why am I saying that? Because it is only in love that you find the divine creative force of God.
Yes, sir.
When the right man comes into your life, he triggers that essence again. And I say the right man is not the man that's cute. The right man is not the man that got money. The right man is the man that got the Spirit of God in him. Listen, without God's Spirit, a man is of no value.
Come on.
But with God's Spirit in a man, he becomes to the woman that which the originator intended him to be. Now, when you sisters fall in love with a man like that, you desire to have a child for that man.
Yes, sir.
You don't want just to be there for him when he comes home. You want to have him again.
Yes, sir.
You want to grow him up from your breast. You want to nurse him at your breast and make him better than the man you fell in love with. So when you have his son or have his daughter, you have the chance to make him over again and advance him into the future better than the man that you fell in love with. And without love, you don't have the desire to make a better human being. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, a nation can rise no higher than its women. And if you, sisters, are not imbued with lofty ideals, you cannot bring children onto the earth imbued with lofty ideals. So to close this point, as Allah looked at the womb of space and created from what was in his own mind and said, be, and it is, the woman has the power to look at her own womb and determine in her mind what she wants to produce. And then while she's making the child, she is actually producing what is in her own brain. And that's why what is in a woman's mind is important for the advancement of a nation. And this is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad thought more of protecting your virtue and your chastity rather than putting you in institutions of higher learning where you would get higher knowledge but ruin your future with God by ruining your virtue, your chastity, and losing your virginity. Do you follow what I'm saying? All praise is due to Allah. Now, sisters, when you become pregnant, as I said in the former lectures, preparation is the cleansing of the body, the cleansing of the mind, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did for us. By our trying to live by the law of God, eating the proper foods, we were in a better frame of mind to produce better children. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted us to have children. And the more children we had, the more blessed we felt we were, because we were trying to produce a better future.
Yes, sir.
We didn't worry about feeding them. We knew that we would be able to feed them. We were prepared to work hard to prepare a future for them, so we didn't mind having them. Now, dear brothers and sisters, we have to learn the science of this. We did it accidentally while the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was among us. Just by following his teachings, we produced beautiful children. But now, we must grow to another level. And that other level is to understand scientifically how to produce a better child. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that there were three things that the white man never wanted to teach us. Number one, the science of warfare. Number two, the science of business. And for the purpose of tonight's lecture, number three, the science of mating. The science of choosing the proper mate so that you reduce accident. The white man knows how to produce a thoroughbred horse. He knows how to produce a thoroughbred dog. Don't you think he knows how to produce a thoroughbred human being? They don't teach you this. So sisters, you're not careful how you choose a man. And brothers, you are not careful how you choose a woman. any old woman will do, because what you want is not the furtherance of your people. You want a night of pleasure. Now, look at this. In our body, this body that Almighty God has so bounteously and wonderfully fashioned for us, it is a goodly form, our form. It is a marvelous instrument, this body. Would you agree? Yes, sir. In it, there's a heaven and there's a hell. Or there's an upper region, a heavenly part of us, which deals with that which does the controlling, the guiding. And there's the earthly part, which of course is the flesh, the blood, the bone. Okay? Now there's an unseen part of us, and there's a very visible part of us. The unseen or spiritual part deals with the way you think. You can't see that. But if you watch the actions of a person, it can tell you something about the way they think. But the real core of a man's thinking or a woman's thinking is called the heart. And the heart is compared in the scriptures of the Bible to the male organ. Oh, God. Now, this is not no filthy, cheap talk here tonight. Why is the heart compared to the male organ? Jesus talks about circumcision of the heart. Is that right? You can't circumcise the heart. Circumcision is an act decreed upon the Jews and Muslims of the male organ. It is the cutting away of the foreskin of the male organ. Now, what is it about the foreskin of the male organ that compares it with the heart, or the core of a man or woman's thinking, the seat of our intellect, and the core of our emotions? The foreskin is that which comes over, covers over the male organ and hides disease.
Yes, sir.
So wise Allah, God, ordered that the children of Israel, the male children, be circumcised, because the male organ can hold disease, because it is in a dark place and it is covered. And this is where all germs or bacteria grow. They grow in darkness. And this is why under the arms and in all of the real dark places where there is more moisture and more darkness, there is the growth of more bacteria. Do you understand? So now, if this instrument is the instrument of life itself, and it is dirty with bacteria building up under that foreskin that is unseen, and that is placed where it is created to be placed for the procreation of life, and it is passing on life, but it's also passing on death in the germs and disease that is around it that is unseen. So Moses asked the little Jewish boys that when they are coming from their mother, a few days old, cut away the foreskin. that the organ of life may be constantly washed and kept clean. But what about your heart? And what about your thinking? And what about the seat of your intellect? Mama don't know what you're thinking. Daddy don't know what you're thinking. You can hide your thoughts from anybody but yourself and God. So you can always appear to be one thing on the outside that you ain't got nothing to do with on the inside. I'm not anti-Catholic. Don't even think that. Don't go there. Don't take this to that. I'm saying God made the man and he didn't want him to be alone. So he gave him a woman to help him carry out his duty. So I don't know as a man how I could carry out my duty and develop myself as a man without a mate. And it's not, you know, Adam and Steve. I thought it was Adam and Eve. Now, a man doesn't need a mate to help him do nothing. But nature makes the man seek the woman, and nature makes the woman seek the man. That's natural, but it must be guided, and it must be controlled, lest the natural seeking of each other ends up in fornication, which then has a destructive force in it. Right now, you don't think that because everybody's doing it. Okay. But sisters, I must tell you, not just the fear of AIDS. That should stop you, all right? But you should never give yourself to any man just for the sake of pleasure. Because whether you know it or not, pain comes before pleasure. In the natural order of things, it's difficulty that comes first, then ease. Okay, well, I've been talking for nearly an hour, and and so I need to tie this up. What I'm saying in a nutshell is God created the heavens and the earth to serve the man, the woman, the children, the family. There is nothing with God more important than the family. If you doubt what I'm saying, look at the Mosaic law and look at the punishment that God meted out, and the most heavy punishments were those things that interfered with marriage and family. So with God, the institution of marriage is what he established. So marriage is not a game that we play for legal rights to have sex. Some of us want sex, and I mean, all of us kind of do. But to say, baby, let's get married so we can do it right, that means that your marriage is predicated on an overmastering desire that is called lust. If love, real love, is not there, and lust begins us on the journey, because the journey starts, I want you. See, all the songs, I want you, baby. Can we make love tonight? See, this ain't love you making. This is a mess you making. You call it love. But what happens in the back seat of the car, in the dark, in the stairwell, in the park, in the $2 house or the $5 house or the $100 house? If the idea of God is not at the root of what we do, then what we do and the way we do it is below what God intended. And I believe this is why the scripture says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. I am from above, while you are from beneath. Since God loved marriage and loved family, then there cannot be true union absent the Creator. Listen, Allah says in the Quran, keep your duty first to Allah and then to each other, by whom you demand, your rights of each other. But duty to God is always first. So if God is not at the center of the desire for union, then this is not going to be necessarily a good union. In fact, when the desire for the woman and the man has been fulfilled and you've had enough, then the eyes begin to wander. Something else that we desire. So Jesus said, this wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign.
Go ahead.
If it was wicked and adulterous in that time, if Jesus were back here today, would it be the same? It would be worse. True? Okay. Because there's so much infidelity, so much adultery, this is why marriage in America, over 50% of those who marry get divorced. When the woman is divorced but has children, the man walks away and finds him some other woman to sleep with. But what about the woman
Go ahead.
that died on the table to give birth to an extension of your life? What about her? Every time a woman gives birth to a baby, she experiences the pain of death to bring forth life. That's why I said pain before pleasure. You had to have your virginity taken in pain before you could enjoy pleasure. And you had to have pain before you could enjoy the pleasure of new life. So to run away from pain is to run away from what God has ordained to bring out of us what is the best or the worst that is within us. The black family is in disarray. 70% of the black homes headed by a female, yet a male was there because they are children. That's why I call the Million Man March, brothers. Not to beg the government, but to atone to God for the failure of us as men to accept our responsibility as a man, as a husband, as a father. When we atone to God and get ourselves back on the path of God, the power of God comes to us then there is no impediment in our way that we can't remove. The law of God is right. We shouldn't commit fornication. We shouldn't commit adultery. These are acts that destroy family, destroys the peace of homes, and it breaks the brotherhood. Huh? But when you live in a society that constantly is feeding the sex drive, and then there's no monitoring male-female relations, people fall in love and you leave them alone without chaperone, without supervision, then the law of nature subverts the law of you shouldn't commit fornication. You all not watching your children. You're too busy watching soaps. You all not watching your young people. You're too busy pursuing a living. And you think your youngsters are watching themselves? I expose myself to some of these raps. And to some of the stuff that's on the radio today. I tell you what it made me want to do. I got so angry. I just want to grab the rapper and rip out his throat. But I know it's not his fault. He's just following the trend. You have become human swine. Let me just get it right to you. Just human pigs. Yeah, a female swine and a male swine. Yeah. You're lovers of filth and indecency. You don't have a nose, sisters. You have a snout like a swine. No, I want you to listen to me. Don't get upset, Piggly Wiggly. You sisters and brothers too, you got your nose sniffing around looking for garbage. Filth that you can use to slander, defame. Huh? Garbage gossipers, slanderers, defamers. Young men, what's the latest? What's happening? You don't want to hear nothing of value, nothing of truth, nothing of righteousness, nothing uplifting. You want the garbage because you have become a swine. I want you to hear me now. Human pigs. And God hates the pig. What do you think God thinks of human beings who act like a hated animal? A swine. My son, one day, a great comedian visited my home, and we had dinner, and he invited me to his show. My son was trying to tell me, Daddy, don't go. But I said, well, let me see what the show is like. I got in the limousine and we drove on over to this big stadium that basketball teams play in. Place was packed. And my little brother got up to do his act. And it was kind of raunchy. Not kind of raunchy. It was pretty rough. I stopped looking at him I started looking at the people. Because this was not funny to me. As I started looking at women, that's what I'm talking about, sisters, you. They were eating up the filth. Wow! I said, well, look at this. I said, the lower down he went, the more they loved it. Just, can't you see what's happening to you? You're being made nothing. When somebody feeds you filth and you love it, and Jesus said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Then what have we become? We abandon our children. Physical assault going on. Sexual assault is probably in this audience of women less than 100 who can say that they've come this far in life and they haven't been abused by a father, an uncle, a brother, somebody in their own immediate family that they look to with honor and respect. Probably hardly 100 sisters who can say, I have not been abused. That's pretty rough. And on my last tour, as I spoke around this country to thousands and thousands of people, when I mentioned abuse of girls by their fathers, you could see the women. Tears started running down their cheeks, because they can't hardly tell their own mothers what their own fathers are doing, because the mothers don't want to hear it. So they suffer in silence. And as I spoke, you could see the tears rolling down their cheek. They're saying, somebody understands my suffering. Now, most often, the males who are abusive to the children are not biologically related to the children, but are in a relationship with the female head of the household. If the male lives there, it is usually temporary. His presence is then followed by a period of time where there is no male presence. Then a different male is brought into the home. Now look at what you're doing, sisters. This cycle creates confusion among the children as to the authority in the home, and it creates resentment as well. Do you know what it does to a male child to hear his mother carrying on in the next room with a strange man that is not his father? Do you know what you're doing? You don't care no more. We have become so much like animals that we will bring a man into the home knowing that your children are there, and you'll put the children to look at the TV while you go in the next room. Performing acts with strangers. The poor man has no job, so you invite him to live with you. But all the while he's living with you, he'll abuse your male children and keep his eye on your growing daughters. Did you know that young male children are actually ordered out of the home at a young age, even 8 or 9 years old? Some of these men that you take up as lovers, they can't stand your sons from a previous marriage. So they'll order your son out of the house, and you will put your son out because you want the love and affection of this man. And your son is in the street at 8 or 9 years old. He don't have no peace in that house because when he comes, he sees his mother in a degraded condition. Some of these young boys and girls see their mother and father, or the mother and the lover, cutting up drugs and cocaine in the kitchen. Sisters, brothers, this is not make-believe. This is real. This is happening. The Quran says Jesus would do. He would teach the people what foods to eat and what foods to store in their houses. When did your Jesus teach you what foods to eat? Look at the nasty way you eat. And you call yourself a Christian and sitting down roasting up this nasty pig. Listen to me good. Don't be mad with me now. You probably had a little pork before you got here today. Well, I think I'll have a little ham, a little bacon this morning. Have a little pork chop getting ready, a little ham hock. The greens all, soaked up in the juice of the ham hock. You were just ready to kill yourself. It's a greasy, nasty, ugly animal. To look at the animal is enough to scare you. It's an ugly creature. It's a sodomous creature. Yeah, a male hog will have sex with another male. Pig eaters do the same thing. You are what you eat, Yeah. The hog will eat its own young. And you, the hog eater, destroy your own children. Some non-hog eaters do the same. That is a terrible animal. Well, God created it. Yes. That's what the reefer smokers say. Yeah, if God didn't want us to smoke it, he wouldn't have created it. Well, go smoke a tree then. Go smoke a fish. God created a lot of things you can't eat. Food. You got to use everything according to the purpose for which it was created in order to get the benefit out of God's creation. So the reefer smoker said, well, God created the weed and there's something in it. Something in it. Yeah, there's something in it, all right. The pig, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, was created for medicinal purposes, not to be eaten by anybody. God knew we were coming into a world that would rebel against him, and in that rebellion would cause people to die an untimely death due to disease. So he created the hog from 3 low animals through the grafting of cat, rat, and dog. He made a hog. Yeah, look at it. That pig sometimes bark like a dog. Got this little funny looking tail like a rat. It's all part of it. Now, would you go home and sit down and eat cat, rat, and dog put together? Well, that's what you're eating when you eat Mr. Pig. I know you're hot with me. But I'm not angry with you. Don't get angry with me because I'm trying to give you some sense. Be angry with somebody that robbed you of good sense. That you would sit there and eat up this nasty, filthy animal and say it's good. It is not good. Everything that tastes good is not good. It has a little worm in it that you can't kill. They tell you heat it to so many and so many degrees or smoke it and you'll kill the little strychnine worm. Not so, brother. You can heat it all the way up to whatever temperature you want. You eat bacon, you eat ham, you eat pork chop, you eat ham hock, you eat any part of the pig, and you're eating a mouthful. Every mouthful you put in is a mouthful of these little strychnine worms. And they get right down inside you and they come alive and start moving. Yeah, they do a dance too. They know you love to move, so they just move right with you. Before you know it, the hog working in your muscles, working in your joints. When it gets to your spinal column, it's over. It travels right up the spine into the cells of your